You're listening to Rocklaz Radio, and this is your host, Tanmay Shah. On today's show, we have with us Paulius Yuadis, who is a language enthusiast. He loves languages. He teaches Lithuanian and English. So you have guessed where he's from. He's joining us. We'll be talking about Lithuania today. He's also a writer and host of a podcast called The Ink Well, which talks to other linguaphiles and polyglot enthusiasts, basically, people who love languages. He has also studied, he has done a BA in sociology and anthropology from Vytautas Magnus University. How do you pronounce that?
Yeah,
Vytautas.
very good. Vytautas Magnus University. That is
Okay.
correct.
Great. So I really love when there are anthropologists and sociologists coming to the show because I really like talking about culture, and we're gonna talk about culture and languages. So let's dive into this. We'll talk about Lithuania, then I have questions for you, and then we'll have the
Sure.
signature round.
Fantastic.
Okay. So let's start by sharing where is Lithuania on the map on Google Earth and Google Maps. Here we go. Here
Yeah,
it
it's such a
is.
small country, so it's nice to have a map on, just because sometimes it can go overlooked in the whole scheme of the world.
Yes. In the previous episode, we spoke about Greenland, and we came to this region for references, Denmark and all that. And here is Lithuania, next to Latvia and Estonia, which is next to Russia and between Poland and next to Belarus. Fun facts.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
Sorry for interrupting. Please continue.
Latvia, looking at Latvia, I just reminded of my co-host in earlier episodes, Laura Grinberger. So you can hear her voice and thoughts in the audio-only episodes, which are like 1 to 10. You can see it on Spotify or Apple Podcast. But yes, so nice to be talking to her neighbor from Lithuania. Here is Lithuania. And these are called the Baltic states, right? Because of the Baltic Sea.
Yeah, they're called the Baltic states, but interestingly, Estonian is not a Baltic language. It's
Oh.
Finno-Ugric, and it isn't even an Indo-European language, which is also a fun fact about the three Baltic sisters. So Lithuanian and Latvian still have the same roots. They came from the same language family, although we cannot understand each other, unfortunately. It's not like Spanish and Italian people speaking to each other. But of course, if a Latvian decides to learn Lithuanian or a Lithuanian decides to learn Latvian, it's much easier to pick it up.
Hmm. And you must be having really cold winters because you're so cold, close to the North Pole and the Arctic circles. And
It's quite
yeah.
chilly. I would say it's quite chilly. It's not as extreme as in Finland, but we get up to like minus 20, minus 25 Celsius. Minus 25 is like the most extreme, I guess. And we get quite a bit of snow, which is fun. We have all the four seasons, so spring, summer, fall, and winter. But as you have said, in the winter it gets quite chilly.
Hmm. We have 3 seasons.
Which one is missing? Is it the winter?
No, winter, summer, and monsoon.
Ah, yeah. How long does the monsoon seasons last?
4 months. So all the seasons we count it as 4 months.
Right.
So 4 months of summer, four monsoon, and four winter. So monsoon is, I guess, a very tropical thing, or I don't know if it's just an Indian thing or South Asian, but it just rains. It just rains for the 4 months continuously.
Yeah, I heard that in the southeastern Asian countries it's the same.
Hmm.
Any country, I guess, in the tropical region. And I can't imagine. What do you do for those 4 months?
So it's not like London, like unpredictable rain any day or every day, but it is predictable rain, and it's not that I mean, it's fun. It gets very windy. We love the rains, the fragrance of the ground that comes, and
Yeah,
we get to have this bhajiyas or pakoras that we eat during monsoon. It tastes amazing. So yeah, that's what
nice.
we do.
Cool.
Have we are going to talk about Sanskrit today, and just before
Mhm.
that, I wanted to ask you, what is one thing you love the most about your country?
The one thing that I love the most, I think nature wins over everything because 1/3 of the country is forested. Um, it has many lakes. We do have a little bit of a coastal line, so we have access to the Baltic Sea, and that small enclave of land called Curonian Spits, which is probably one of my favorite destinations to go in Lithuania. There are small cities called Juodkrantė and Nida, and it's a UNESCO recognized nature reserve. So
Let's
it's
pull it
a
up and
really lovely place.
show the audience. Where are these?
So if you zoom in into Lithuania and you go to the west side where you can see the Baltic Sea, and if you zoom in, you will see our coastal town, the third largest town called Klaipėda. And if you go a little bit lower, you will see this. Now you can start seeing a piece of land that is separated from the. It's like a very thin line.
This one.
Yeah, here. Yeah, so on the right side there is a lagoon. So it's a man-made water reservoir, and on the left side you can see the Baltic Sea. And if you go lower, you will start seeing small towns. So
Hmm.
if you go all the way to the bottom, there is going to be a line that separates. Yes, so you can see the line that separates the part which is Kaliningrad. So we are already in the Russian enclave, and yeah, if you zoom in just by the line there, uh,
Yeah.
a little bit in the middle here, and if you press on Nida, that small town here, so this is probably my and many Lithuanians' favorite holiday destination to go on. It's a
Why?
small town, and it has very lovely dunes, which are still moving, and they have to be protected
Dunes?
because it's dunes. Yeah, if you go a little bit upper, you will start seeing the dunes a little bit more.
What do you mean by dunes? Like I know sand dunes.
Exactly.
So there's sand dunes in this
Yeah.
region.
Yeah, it's also UNESCO. That's why the region is also a part of the UNESCO heritage site because it has moving and a very, I forget the English name,
Yeah, just tell it in
fragile,
Lithuanian. Sorry?
fragile dunes. Yeah.
Fragile. But where are
So
they? I cannot still see them, and I'm really surprised to
if
find dunes in middle of such a green country.
if you will zoom out a little bit, you could do a little bit of a zoom out, and you will start seeing it on the left actually.
These.
Here they are. Yes.
Oh.
So you can actually add into the Google search Nida Dunes, and you will see the pictures not from a satellite, but just people-made pictures.
Hmm.
So if you add Nida Dunes, it's gonna probably pop out. So
Oh,
so it's an yeah, it's
they
very odd.
actually look like. So it's like a beach with a lot of sand.
Well, if you would go back a little bit to the last page that you were on, and one more time back, I saw a very good picture. It's the fourth picture
This one.
from the top. Yeah. So Anna, this is actually not Lithuania, unfortunately. We don't have mountains. That's a part of our landscape that we do not have. So, anyways, it's just an interesting location to visit, and I always encourage people that come to Lithuania, if they have the time, to go to Klaipėda, take the
Hmm.
ferry. to the Curonian spits, and it feels like you enter another world, at least for
Mm.
Lithuanians. The nature is different, the smell is different, the trees are different, and the people are also more relaxed. So
Mm.
it's the closest to what we have in responses like a Lithuanian islands
One more
type of.
question. Is this
Sure.
water which is separated, is this fresh water or salt water? This one inside.
It should be freshwater, as far as I know,
Hmm.
but I could be mistaken. I would have to check it out.
And as we are in this region, I also had this curiosity.
Yes,
How let me show it on the political map.
yes.
Russia is here. How does Russia still have this piece of land?
Well, this part of land was given to Russia after the Second World War. So it the area of this land, as well the area of Klaipeda, it's a little bit historically confusing because it was part of the Teutonic Order, like in the 13th century, and later on it was part of Prussia, which no longer exists.
Hmm.
And I might be actually, I might be wrong. It might be not after the First World War, but when the Germans lost the First World War, uh, this part was given away to the Soviet to this part was given away to the Russian
Hmm.
Empire,
Hmm.
or it was given away after the Second World War. But
So
it
even
was just
then,
a treaty
US
signed.
USSR still broke down in the late 1980s. So this was much before that, and these states got independence, but this one didn't claim independence.
Well,
Why?
the because it did not belong to Lithuania and it did not belong to Poland, so it kind of remains as part of the Russian Federation.
So
Because
these people
Prussia,
here,
which
uh,
Prussia, which no longer exists, could not claim it back. We could say
hmm,
so. It kind of just remained as a piece of
hmm,
land given to the former Soviet Union after signing the Treaty of Versailles.
so it becomes a very strategic location for Russia, right?
Yes, it is actually, and that's why in the beginning of the Russo-Ukrainian War, we had restricted the movement of the trains because you never know what's inside the trains, and we do have a
Hmm,
lot of history with occupations, so we don't really fancy
hmm.
these things happening through the
And
lands.
Lithuania is the first country to get independence. Read from USSR.
Yeah, it was actually a very nice occasion because it was called the Baltic Way as well. It was done in 1989, so it was a peaceful protest where people held hands all the way from Tallinn, the Estonian capital, to Vilnius. So it was over 600 kilometers of people holding hands,
Wow.
expressing unity and expressing their wish not to be part of the Soviet Union and to declare independence. And after a year in 1990, finally we have regained our independence. And although the Russian military remained for a year or actually a few years, but yeah, officially it had the three Baltic states claimed independence in 1990.
Wow. When did okay? So coming to languages,
Sure.
I discovered this through your video for the first time last week that Lithuanian is very similar to Sanskrit. When did you discover it and how was your reaction?
Actually, I heard it first time when I was a teen, probably, and I don't remember the source. It was just a thing that was floating through the air. And the first time I heard it, I was thinking like, "Oh, that's just so odd." But because of my interest in cultures and religions and so on, it wasn't as odd as it might be for other people, because I know that the Baltic, pre-Christian Baltic religions, the pagan religions, are quite similar to Hinduism. But that's not anything very surprising, because if you look into Nordic mythology, if you look into Germanic mythology, also Slavic and Baltic, they do share a lot of commonalities with Hinduism. Maybe because of the Proto-Indo-European language family and the groups, I am not so certain why. But Hinduism definitely has maintained its way of life, and Lithuanians, other countries, have exchanged it into the Abrahamic religions,
Can you give
which
an
is.
example of how on the similarities you're talking about the culture?
Do you mean in terms of the religious aspect, the language aspect, or just in general?
Cultural aspect, you mentioned the pagan religions or those communities have traditions which are similar to Hinduism.
Yeah, well, for starters, the pantheon is a little bit similar, because we have one of the supreme deities, Perkunas, and Perkunas is kind of like the equivalent of Indra. So he is a god of thunder and lightning, holding a hammer, something like Thor as well, from the Nordic mythology. We have Devas, so Devas in Sanskrit, it's the same word as the supreme deity, as well, like the creator of the skies, we could say. And at the same time, we held nature sacred, so different
Hmm.
kind of aspects, and death by fire. So if a person is, most of the time in the old days, people were burned because they felt like it was purifying their souls, so to say. And I know that that's a common aspect of burial practices in India as well. At least I don't know if it is now, but it has been.
Yeah.
And also fire. Fire in Sanskrit, I know it's agnis, and in
Hmm.
Lithuanian it's ugnis. So it's also the same, or at least a very similar words. So different kind of ritual practices, offerings as well, making offerings to the gods, making offerings to the nature. So it was kind of believed. Also, I don't know if it's the same in some Hindu
About.
rituals, but when a
Hmm.
person is burned, at least in the old days, Lithuanians believe that the smoke that goes to the heaven is like his soul going into the Milky Way and flying through the Milky Way, and leaving to the afterlife. I do not know if it's similar in Hinduism,
So
though.
the still all Hindus all over world practice that cremation by fire. It is. I don't know about the belief of smoke rising and going into the galaxy, but what I have learned and observed and talked to my family and other religious leaders is the belief that we come from five elements: fire, earth, water, ether, and air, wind. So burning or this kind of cremation gets those all elements back. So your body is made by these five elements, and by that process of fire, you're going back to them. So you go back into the air and ether, and whatever the remains are, the ashes and bones are, how do you say, put into water, into flowing water like river.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
yeah,
That's interesting. Yeah.
it keeps the cycle of the nature.
Yeah, and like in the old days, it was actually also cruel, but you cannot judge uh, previous people from your current standards, because the life was very different. But if, let's say, some kind of a lord, or some kind of a well-known person died, if he was a warrior, most of the time he would be cremated with his horse
Oh,
together. So he would have the horse in the afterlife as well, and also with his servants. So like his number one servant or even a couple of servants, also with his most luxurious things. Everything would be put into his death place, so
So
he could yeah.
all the horse and the servants you mentioned were burnt alive.
Uh, not, I'm not certain if they were burned alive, if they were made as a sacrifice before, if they killed themselves or someone else did the bidding. On those details, I'm not 100% sure. But the fact that they were traveling with their lord into his afterlife, that was a fact. But it's also
Hmm.
similar to Egyptian, ancient Egyptian rituals of death. So that's it might be worldwide, maybe from like the peoples that lived before. It's very interesting when you look into it, because those are very different regions, but the practices are very similar.
In India, there was this practice which is no more legal or which is condemned. It was common in many decades, centuries ago. It was called sati, in which if the husband died before the wife had to
Mhm.
sit on the wife had to sit on her husband's burning pyre.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow. In which day and age was that? When was it declared illegal?
100 years back.
All right. Okay, I
100
see.
years back, or maybe after India's independence. I'm not exactly sure, but
Mhm.
quite recently on the scale of the civilization time scale.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, personally speaking, I was thinking of this because recently my grandmother passed away,
Mhm.
and I was looking at the fire, and I was just discussing with my friends and family that this, I mean, to burn the whole body, you need a lot of wood, and you need a lot of inflammatory things like ghee, which is saturated, clarified butter, or I don't know what's ghee
Mhm.
called in English, but
Yes.
that and ether. There are these balls or thing that we use in artis, which are
Mhm.
inflammatory. We call it kapoor. So
Okay.
it's white, which burns very quickly. So all those things along with wood we keep, and that whole process takes 6 7 hours 8 hours for the whole thing to burn and become ashes overnight. We go back the next day and see what is left and what is not, and those flames are huge. I was just sitting there and thinking how what a torture it might have been for a live woman to sit on it
Right.
and
Yeah.
be burned like that. So I was asking, them, what do you think they were sedated or something? Because how can somebody bear some pain like that? But then the other arguments which came were that she knew it. She was mentally prepared that this was going to happen. Probably that's why she didn't rebel and all that. But
Well, there are different kind of things that seem extreme to us, but probably not to the people who are actually engaging in them. Like, for example, when people go to end their life in their old age by jumping off a mountain, which was a common practice in many. I think it's even still a practice in Indonesia in a certain town. And yeah, thinking about the Japanese spirit of dying for their lord, if they mistreated him in some kind of way, or like what was happening in the Roman times of taking your life if you disobeyed the emperor. From our standpoint, it seems crazy and unthinkable in some ways, but I guess their mindset, their mentality was quite different from ours. And probably a lot of mental preparation was necessary,
mm,
and we would experience the same pain, but we would react to it in another manner.
another phenomena which would happen in Rajasthan, which is the western part of India, if the husband or the king loses a battle, or the people at home know that he has lost a battle, losing
Mhm.
is dying. He might have died on the battlefield. All the important women in the family, all the palaces had this well where
Mhm.
they could burn it. A lot of wood were there, and all these women would jump in the fire.
Wow.
All, all the whole community or the all the women would jump because they didn't want to be left behind and misused by the invaders which would come after them. So,
That's understandable because there was a part in Lithuanian history where a certain castle was sieged, and it was also a common practice that the invaders, let's say, how what happened to the enclave, the Russian enclave that you were showing on the map before Kaliningradas in the old days, like in the 13th century or so. It was part of the Lithuanian Empire, I believe, at that time, and oh, I'm sorry, it was not part of the Lithuanian Empire. It was part of Prussia. So it was one of the Baltic tribes that went extinct quite a long time ago, before the Germanic takeover. And yeah, it was a place where one of the Baltic tribes lived. And when the Crusade started, because Crusade started not just to the east, they started to the north as well to convert the pagan tribes and pagan people. Uh, Prussians were kind of occupied by the warrior monks, which were called the Teutonic Order. And one practice was also to kill all the men and to impregnate all the women. So maybe that's conversion in their terms of the old times. But yeah, that's how actually the Prussians disappeared. So it was taken over. And yeah, when you look into history and you hear
mm,
these kind of stories, and when you the story that you told about the well, and coming
mm,
back to the castle, so also the people were sieged and they didn't want this destiny, so they also took their lives, which is a
you
common
know,
common topic, romantic topic in some ways that we learn in history.
so pagans in the Baltic were converted by the Crusaders who were Christian. But in terms of India, it was the more of the Islamic
Mhm.
and Mughal emperors which were coming and trying to convert and doing all these things.
Yeah, but you somehow you
Hello.
reacted to it differently. Like you kind of took in part of the culture by while retaining yours, which is a very interesting thing. That Hinduism in those areas seems like it was not destroyed, but the Islamic culture was incorporated
Mm.
into the Indian tradition. So it's interesting. It became like some kind of a synthesis, and I don't know how that happens, but it's a very interesting way to deal with foreign cultures or like aggressive invasions.
It's beautiful to see, all the religions of the world you can find in India, and all are welcome. Everybody is allowed to follow their own beliefs and religion. They can even start their own, or they are very, very free, and the law protects them to follow whatever they want spiritually.
Yeah.
So, and it's very interesting to see that even the Islamic religion here has been influenced by the traditions and the festivals. So if beating drums or in the Indian style might not be where it originated from, right, near Jerusalem or in the Middle East, but being in India for such a long time, they celebrate their own festivals, but in the Indian, it has the Indian flavor to them. I observed this during Muharram a couple of days ago. So in my region, there's a practice about um, carrying the DT on your head for long distances and having these march sort of thing. And I was seeing that being done with the Islamic figure also. But anyways, they don't believe in statues or anything. But it was interesting to see that he actually carrying something on top. I couldn't see the details because it was covered with all the garlands and all that. But he was carrying on his head, and they were doing similar things to. it- it's very interesting to see that. And coming back to your region and um, people there, how did when did people started accepting Christianity, and are there still somebody who practices other religions there?
Well, Lithuania was the last European country to be turned into a Christian country, and it happened in the 14th century. So there was actually the problem was that while the whole Europe is Christian, also the Muscovy has, because there was no Russian Empire at that time, there was Muscovy, which is Kingdom of Moscow, has taken Orthodox religion from Constantinopolis of the time. We had a lot of we had a lot to think about, because from one side there's the Catholics, from other sides there's the Orthodox, and being the only pagan country or a pagan empire at the time was not very politically strategic, because we had a lot of pressure. But maybe because of the reason that we were having more trouble with the Muscovy in that time, we decided to take the Catholic faith as a political move more than conversion of sorts, because only the elite, so to say, took Christianity, but you know, the people just continued their old ways of life, because probably even the news that the religion has changed did not reach them. They didn't have internet, so maybe a pigeon flew somewhere, but you don't have enough pigeons to tell everyone. And yeah, so it happened in the 14th century. It was more of a political move than a change of heart.
Mhm.
And only the ruling elite of the times were actually on paper converted to Catholicism. Of course, with time it changed, and now it's a Catholic country predominantly. And one of the main reasons, probably because when we were trying to escape the Soviet rule, uh, because communism predominantly is an atheistic ideology,
Mm.
we were leaning on the Christian faith, the Catholic faith, as a type of national identity, we could say. So, differently from many European countries which are becoming more secular, so the Christianity is kind of decreasing, in Poland and Lithuania, it's actually sort of rising, but in another way. So it's a very, very interesting phenomenon happening in these areas.
Just a side note for all the people, you mentioned Prussia, right? So
Yeah.
Prussia is different from Russia and Persia. Let me pull up the
Yeah.
screen and show the audience. So this region, I mean, it's mainly Germany, right? So this region was Prussia and
It was a little bit smaller, actually.
smaller.
It was more like it was in the northwest, in the northeast. I'm sorry, where now it's Kaliningrad, and a little bit. Although it was a little bit bigger, so it was in the old days, like the 12th, 11th century. It was just a Baltic tribe. Then, after the Teutonic takeover in the 13th century, it became mainly Germanic, and
Mm,
then it became into Prussia, which was one of the kingdoms of the Holy Roman Empire, because it
mm,
was like the Holy Roman Empire was made of like 100 something kingdoms, and it was
mm,
very small kingdoms. And Prussia was the one to unite Germany, and so it was kind of the unifying kingdom under which Germany was united as we know it, and it formed the First Reich, which later on went into the First World War. So so yeah, it came under it came, how to say,
mm.
it has a rich history, and it was the leading force to unite the Germanic kingdoms.
Hmm.
But previously, it was before the 13th century. It was just other people, just living their lives. But the name, the people changed, the culture changed, the name remained.
The you mentioned about similarities between Sanskrit and Lithuanian and the cultures being similar. What is your approach to swastik
To
symbol?
swastika.
Yeah.
It's the symbol of sun. We do have that similar symbols in the Lithuanian mythology as well. So it symbolizes the sun. I don't know if it's the same in the Hindu traditions.
Wow, that's interesting. So when people started hating the Nazi swastik, how did you react? How did the people of Lithuania react?
Well, it's not a very common kind of a symbol. More of the times we just have like sort of a circle, which is divided into six parts, or like with snakes coming out outside of it. So it's the most common symbol of the sun. So we don't have much relationship to it. I know that when the Nazis took the swastika, they took it from Hinduism and they appropriated it to themselves because, well, Hitler had interesting ideas about Atlantis and like Aryans and all kind of stuff. But Lithuania, I think the symbol of the sun, as it's in the swastika in the Hinduism, it's not a very common theme. Like
I'm trying to pull up the Lithuania swastik. Let me see if I can find an image. But you asked me
it's
if it is a
interesting
similar.
because
Hmm?
now it's more like in the graveyards you can see the Christian symbol, which is the cross. But on the cross, there's the pagan symbol of the sun, the circle with some things coming out of it. So it's that's also an interesting representation, which shows kind of the mix that happened through the times of different kind of symbolisms.
Hmm.
So I might try to help you find it, but if you do,
So this is what I'm coming when I type
huh?
Lithuania swastiks. So this is
Um,
neo-Nazi.
well, no, it's probably it's not related to like Lithuania. It's more Germanic in this kind of a sense. Although, if you come up a little bit up, you see that interesting figure where there's the double cross.
Light, right, left, center.
This one, yeah. Although it was not in a red kind of in the red font.
Hmm.
So it was actually what was most of the times on the shields of Lithuanian warriors, like in the medieval times, and it's a double cross. It was just a symbolism that they used. And on the right side, a little bit downwards, you can see that there's like three pillars. More right a little bit here. So it was this was the sign of one of but as you can see, it's actually German. So most of these symbolisms is probably coming from Germany, or it's somehow connected to
Hmm.
the occupation that we had because we were occupied by Germany for
Hmm.
like I think a year, a little bit more maybe. So it could be that it's the German way of trying to incorporate Lithuania into their Third Reich at the time. So maybe that's where these most of these photos are coming from.
Hmm. So the one on the left is Hindu. You can
Yeah.
easily identify the Hindu symbol because it has dots within the cross.
Hmm. What do the dots symbolize?
And it's usually red background on this. So what, as per what I know, whatever little I know,
Hmm.
it divides the nature in four parts, and these are the different elements.
Right. Okay. So it's more like seasons represented
Yeah.
in the yeah.
And you'll find this interesting. We had this guest from Iran. She was telling me that this is even a very common symbol in Iran. It was the,
Really?
and this is how it is related to you, because this was the wheel of the god of sun. So you said this
Hmm.
represents the sun in Lithuania, right? So it is the wheels of
Ah.
sun in Iran.
Actually, I went into DuckDuckGo and I also added the word sun symbol Lithuania, and there I received a better imagery which is not connected to the Nazi
Mhm.
leftovers. so so if you would add sun symbol Lithuania, let's see what kind of symbolism we would get there. So the one on the left, it's a good representation,
This one?
although yes, although most of the time in the center there will not be those three pillars which represented the ruling family of Gediminaichi in like the 13th and 14th and 15th. No,
Mm-hmm.
more like 14th and 15th century. So we wouldn't have that. But the sun symbol is more like this,
Mm.
and you can actually see it in many locations in Lithuania where they are carved on wood, because we do have a lot of wooden sculptures, and this is predominantly from the pagan times.
Mm.
So this is more like the Lithuanian equivalent of the swastika coming from India, which
Mm.
is a little bit different, as you can see. A location which is called the Hill of the Witches, which is in the same Cronian spit that we were talking about before, the small piece of land separated by the lagoon that we were discussing.
Mm-hmm.
And there you can see probably the biggest accumulation of wooden sculptures representing the pre-Christian Lithuanian tradition. So
Mm-hmm.
it's literally called Raganų kalnas, which in English is translated the Hill of the Witches. And I think it was believed that it was like the gathering point of the witches flying from different kind of locations in the old days.
These
Yeah,
images,
this
right?
is yeah. So they represent different kind of aspects of Lithuanian folklore. So different kind of imps, and most of the time they're not like evil, but they're like tricksters. You can see that they have
Mm.
horns, but they're laughing and like making fun of you. So it's like the spirits playing, you could say.
I
So
was
that's a
also
common theme.
checking, yeah, for a culture of Lithuania, there was another thing that came up. This witch festival, they're burning some sort of.
Ah, yeah, Užgavėnės. Yeah, it's in the old days, it was celebrated to ward off evil spirits in the changing of seasons. Now we celebrate it more as like we're trying to ward off the winter. So it's a seasonal celebration when we want to scare the winter so the spring would come sooner. So it's the turning point of seasons. And we do bake, we eat pancakes on that day. Everyone bakes pancakes because the pancake symbolizes the sun. So
Mm.
everyone eats pancakes and wants the sun to return quicker. So that's a common Lithuanian festival or celebration, which is definitely pre-Christian in origin.
We have this question for all the guests. Which is your favorite traditional or cultural festival of your country?
That's a good question to ask. We have one more, which is called Jonines. So it's
Can you
basically
spell
a
it or maybe type it in
yes.
the chat box?
I can spell it to you. It's J as my surname. Onines. So Jonines. You can actually add the word Lithuania, and maybe then we'll get some more pictures of the celebration. So it's okay. That's odd. Basically, that celebration is the summer solstice. So
Uh-huh.
it's when it's the longest day and the shortest night. So we also celebrate with huge bonfires, and everyone's in the nature. There's concerts, there's singing, there's dancing. So we're
Can
like
you type the
having
name to
fun.
me? Let me show it to the audience.
Just a sec. So I'll find the chat. Here it is. Yeah, I think you should have received the message.
Yes. This one?
Yeah, exactly. So here you can see the Lithuanian traditional dresses. So most of the ladies are wearing oak leaves on the head and flower kind of crowns.
Hmm.
These are like the traditional folk clothes, at least as how we understand it now. I don't know if they actually were like that centuries ago, but this is like our interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, most of the time we're just like somewhere in nature, making huge bonfires at night, celebrating the longest day, and looking for a specific ring, or we call it paparčio žiedas. I do not know how the plant is called in English, but we spend time looking for that specific plant's flower, we could say, which does not exist. But in the myth, it exists, and it gives you like huge luck if you find it, and and huge luck and love. So it's a just a fun kind of a thing that mainly older people tell for the kids to get them excited, and then the kids like go like, oh, we have to try to find it. So yeah, it's like a small aspect which is quite entertaining.
I found some ladies wearing that unexisting flower.
Nah, it's a little bit different. I can actually type it to you. The plant. So the plant is called like this, and I think it's called fern blossom in English, if I am correct. It's called fern blossom. So that's what we are trying to find. So the plant is fern, and the giadas is a blossom.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have a flower. The ferns don't have flowers, right?
No, they don't. But but in the mythology, it's like during that night, it makes a blossom somewhere, and you need to find it. Like that's the idea. Like
Mm-hmm.
so yeah.
We saw the traditional dresses and cultural events. What is one wedding ritual which is very peculiar, or what is one wedding ritual that only happens in your country?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. You see, I'm not married, so I'm not an expert on the topic. And most of the weddings nowadays are Christian kind of weddings. But some people, even some people I know, want to find the old way of marriage. So uh, they get married in a Romuva way. So Romuva is like the renewed pagan religion of Lithuania, and they find a Vaidila. So Vaidila is like a priest of the Romuva religion, and they go to a sacred place, which is most of the time called an alkas, and which is marked by some positive energy or something, natural energy, something like that. It's a good natural place, and they do certain rituals to bond the two people. I'm not certain because I have never went into such a celebration myself, so I haven't experienced it. But there's a lot of singing, so Lithuania has a certain style of singing polyphonic melodies, which we call sutartinės. So, like people sing in different kind of pitches, which creates a polyphonic tone, and it actually hits you somewhere in the heart, which is a very interesting experience. So they sing these polyphonic melodies and make offerings, maybe some kind of they maybe I don't know if they're abstract or physical. They burn something. I don't think that they do it nowadays. But so that's one interesting way of how to get married in Lithuania.
I found this picture. What do you think is happening here? And is this a wedding ritual of
Well,
Lithuania?
that's a good question. Unfortunately, I could not tell you that. I'm not certain what's happening there, but they're carrying flowers, some kind of a flowers. Maybe that symbolizes like youth,
Hmm.
or maybe a new beginning. I could not be 100% sure,
So it's basically
but
they are carrying these ropes and everybody has a cloth with the others. So yeah, that's interesting to see. And I was seeing for some more cultural dresses. So this is what I found.
yeah, most of the dresses are made out of linen, if that's correct. Translation of the word linas in Lithuanian is a certain material that grew in abundance in Lithuania. So that is the material of the traditional dresses most of the time, and you can see different kind of ornaments. So just like similarly like in Ireland, different family had a different ornaments. So it's here you can also see like different kind of groups of people having different kind of ornaments on the dresses, and
Hmm.
most of the time they're very colorful and quite fun to observe.
Hmm.
So it's
And
also like shows the line of your heritage and your
mhm.
ancestry in some ways.
And is tap dance a common thing in are they tap dancing here?
No, they're not tap dancing. Yeah, it's a common thing. Different kind of traditional dances. I remember as a kid, I was forced to go by my parents to participate in these traditional dances. I had no idea what the hell is going on, but I kind of enjoyed it because I felt like connected to the group of people with whom I was involved. But I think this is also common in different kind of Slavic regions too, like in Ukraine and elsewhere. So it's not predominantly
Hmm.
Baltic in this kind of a sense, but it's more like of the regional thing
Hmm.
of in terms of like the geography, the
So
geographical region.
talking again about geography, can you tell us where exactly Slavic is this and Nordic and Baltic? What are the differentiations in the Europe and this region of the world?
Well, there's basically like the only existing Baltic countries are Latvia and Lithuania. So we have, well, I'm sorry, also like a Baltic country would be Estonia, although they don't have a Baltic language. So that would be the Baltic region. And most of the other countries are Slavic, and they're separated into Eastern Slavic, Southern Slavic. So Eastern Slavic countries are Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine.
Hmm.
Then all the areas in the Balkans, like Macedonia, Bulgaria, those countries are Southern Slavic. And there's also another branch of Slavic, which I don't remember in terms of languages how it's called, but it's Poland. I think it's Western Slavic, if I'm correct. So that is Poland, that is Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia. So they belong to the same group, which is united under the Slavic umbrella, but also they have around the first century CE, they started differentiating in terms of language.
Hmm.
So although Bulgarians still speak Slavic and use the old Slavic scripts, uh,
So they're the only
but
one. Only Bulgarians use old Slavic script. Is that what you're saying?
no, no. It's. I just wanted to say that even though they use the same script, it still belongs to a different branch of the Slavic languages. Although the good thing is that if you know one Slavic language, you can kind of understand the other Slavic languages.
Hmm.
Not fully, definitely not, but you have the main idea. So some words,
Hmm.
of course, are different, but it really helps to learn, just like you learn one Romanic language, say it is Spanish or I don't know, Italian, even French, and it helps you understand other Romanic languages.
Hmm.
With Lithuanian and Latvian languages, we don't have this kind of joy and liberty.
Hmm.
We might understand each other better, but if I, you see, my grandparents lived near the Polish border, and sometimes we would cross the border and go to Poland, and I was shocked that I cannot understand anything because it's a Slavic language. Although after I started learning Russian, now when I go to Poland, I can understand a little bit more, and that's also what makes, I guess, the Baltic languages unique in some ways, because it shows the difference, but it also like restricts them. So from very early years, we start learning foreign languages, and I think we start learning English as a mandatory language since we are like around 8, since the second grade. And when we're in the 7th grade, so we're around like 13, 14, we start learning a third language. So the second foreign language, which we can choose from various
How many
languages.
languages do you
Because we
speak?
have to. I speak Lithuanian and English on, I would say, maybe on a native level. Of course, I'm not a native English speaker, but my language has kind of reached a similar level, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do speak Russian and Portuguese, but my Portuguese is still in the beginning stages. I have been only learning for a year. I can have regular conversations, but
Uh-huh.
and
So we
and my
have this
Russian is
activity,
B1.
B1. We have this activity where we'll do with you as well. So can you please close your eyes for us? Think of your favorite memory
Mhm.
and describe to us in your own language.
Aš esu kalnuose, ganėtinai šalta, apsirengęs šiltai ir esu visai pavargęs, tačiau noriu pasiekti kalno viršūnę ir po 4 valandų kopimo pasiekiau vietą, kurią norėjau pasiekti, esu debesyse ir pro debesis matau apačioje esantį ežerą. Ir jaučiuosi labai laimingas, kad pavyko nukeliauti ten, kur norėjau ir pasiekti savo kelionės tikslą.
So that was Latvian.
That was Lithuanian, yes.
Wow. That sounded good. So can you please translate for us in English what you said?
Oh, well, I think I said that I was in the mountains and I wanted to climb one specific mountain. I didn't say in which region, though. And it was kind of cold and I was tired. But after a few hours of climbing, I finally reached the point where I wanted to go. And through the clouds, I could see the lakes downwards. And I was just very satisfied with the scenery and the sensation of being there.
You as a language expert will be interested in this. I'm going and talking to people in each and every country of the world. And by the end of this, we'll have a record of the sounds of all languages.
Wow, that's awesome. That's crazy.
Yeah. So it was very interesting to hear the sound of Lithuanian today. I was thinking hard of hearing some Sanskrit words. I don't know Sanskrit. I mean, I just hear them in shlokas or mantras when they're playing around. Like, I can identify this is Sanskrit, but I don't speak it or read or write it. So yeah, it is different. It's not even like European languages, or it's a bit like Russian, a little bit, but not like German or Italian or French.
Yeah, we do have a little bit of that kind of a sound. Well, mainly I think it's because in the 18th century, the Lithuanian Polish Commonwealth, which so Lithuania and Poland, the two kingdoms merged in the 16th century. And but at the end of the 18th century, it got divided, and parts of it went to the Russian Empire, parts of it went to Austria, and part of it went to Prussia at that time. And since the end of the 18th century, we were under the Russian Empire, and only like there was a brief period of time after the First World War, so from 1918 to 1940, when we declared like autonomy. But for like over 200 years, we were living under the Russian Federation and later on under the Soviet Union. So I
That has
believe that the
influenced.
pronunciation, yes, the pronunciation definitely, and also specifically because Lithuanian language was banned. So you could not use publicly the language, you should
Oh,
use the Russian language. So we also have a very big and long history of book smuggling into the country from Lithuania Minor, so a region in the west of Lithuania. And there was a lot of underground publications where people wrote newspapers in Lithuania, and they kept the language alive underground, so to say. But of
wow.
course, like through these kind of ways of trying to eradicate the language, it did. I think the pronunciation changed. Maybe not significantly, but quite, at least.
Mm-hmm. And what are the words that you think are similar to Sanskrit?
Well, there are a few identical words. Some of them are question words. So in Lithuanian, when we want to ask who or what, we ask kas. In Sanskrit, I do not know the exact pronunciation. I think it's called kash. When is kada. In Sanskrit, it's also kada. Avis is a sheep. In Sanskrit, avis is also a sheep. There's other words also like dievas, so that's God, and
Mm.
devas in Sanskrit. There's quite a numerous of words, and actually, in a couple of weeks of time, I will
Yeah.
collaborate with a Sanskrit speaker on Backdoor Alast's YouTube channel, and we will play a game with her. So she will tell me a word in Sanskrit, I'll tell her a word in Lithuanian, and we'll try to guess. So I don't want to
Mm.
tell too many words because it might
Yeah.
spoil the fun.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, that'll be quite interesting to see. Stay tuned, guys. Follow his channel. I'll mention in description. In 2 weeks, right? Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And what is your favorite food?
Favorite food in general, or a
In
favorite food from Lithuanian cuisine?
Lithuania? Lithuanian cuisine.
Well, actually, since I and my girlfriend have been living almost for a year abroad in Portugal, we started missing the local food more than when we were in Lithuania because it was easily accessible. So it actually helps the question. And what we are mainly missing is our cold beetroot soup. So it's an odd soup. It's like borscht. It's just a beetroot soup that many regions like Ukraine, let's say, has, but it's a with a Lithuanian twist, and we eat it in the summer when it's hot because it's a cold soup, which is very refreshing. I'll type you the name of it
Isn't
here.
see for me a soup is always hot. So isn't a cold soup a juice? Like it can be a beetroot juice, right?
Not really, because we use kefir, I think in English. So it's something similar to a very thick yogurt to make this soup, and the texture of it is much more thick. It's almost as thick as certain curries in India. So the thickness of it is a little bit different, and we also eat it with hot potatoes on the side,
Hmm.
and so that's the warm aspect. Some people put an egg inside as well, and most of people, the foreigners, get scared by the pink color. But it's mainly because it's combined beetroot and kefir. Then it turns like this way, which is actually quite fun. It's a fun picture, at least for me.
Yeah,
So this is quite this is quite native to our region. I don't know if any other countries eat this kind of soup. So if anyone's in Lithuania during the summertime, I really encourage to try it out.
of course.
What
What is
I also
this? Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
uh-huh.
Yeah, this one.
I wanted just to say that these ones, they are called cepelini. So they're actually potato dumplings, big potato dumplings, which is most of the time eaten with sour cream on the side. As you can see, there's something white there, and some meat parts on the top. And most of the time, these potato dumplings are filled either with meat, with curd, or if you want to go vegetarian, then they will be filled with mushrooms, which is my favorite form of eating these cepelini. And yeah, most of the time, if you go to Lithuania and you want to eat something local from current day and age, they will probably recommend you to try out cepelini.
Mm.
But I would, yeah, so that's the ones that is filled with meat. But I would like to bring some caution because if you eat two, or if you manage to eat three, you will be very, very full. They
Oh,
are very,
it's
very, very
heavy.
filling. Yeah, it's heavy food. But sometimes to try it out, so I wouldn't encourage to order cepelini, order anything like another main dish, like eating some soup, eating cepelini, and if you have space, trying a dessert, that could be definitely
And
sufficient.
and you said potato dumplings, so the cover is
Yes.
a potato.
Yeah, there's a way how to make this kind of dough. And I remember my grandmother in the countryside would spend at least a couple of hours making that dough of potatoes, and then an extra hour or so
Mm.
cooking it. So she would start making it in the early morning and finish like somewhere around noon, and the whole family
Mm.
would be very fond and happy of that.
So this is fried or boiled?
It's boiled.
Very interesting. And you were saying something else before we talked about Cepolene.
Yeah, the second thing that I kind of miss from Lithuania, it's not a specific dish, it's more like a specific food, which is buckwheat. So I don't know if people in the in the southern Asian region eat buckwheat.
Buckwheat.
I think rice is more of a popular grain that people eat, at least in Asia. Uh, in Somewhere in like in the middle of Eurasia, also like in the territories of Ukraine and Russia, they grow a specific plant which is called buckwheat, and also like in Macedonia. No, sorry, in Moldova, it's a very popular dish. So this grain is definitely quite regional, and you will not find it while you're traveling to many places, like in the supermarkets. You can go to like specific shops to buy buckwheat, and fortunately we found one in Portugal. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's a very nice, like it's a kind of a porridge that we make, or it's like a side on another kind of plate that we bake. It's a little bit more nutritious than, let's say, rice in certain ways. So it has quite a lot of magnesium inside of it. And just the taste, it's quite. I love rice. I mean, like it's one of the best things to eat on the side. But sometimes you want to mix it up. So that's what I was missing also.
So this is buckwheat. I'm hearing of
Yes.
this for the first time.
Yes, it is a buckwheat. So that's how it looks in the seed form. And if you will add buckwheat plant, you can see how it looks when it's growing. So sometimes in Lithuania, driving by, you can see wild buckwheat growing. Also, we have specific agricultural fields dedicated to grow it. So the plant would look something like that. Also, it has a reddish color when you're driving past by. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's something like wheat, but yeah, it's just a different kind of a grain.
So you said rice, right? We have rice, but our meals are of two grains. So wheat also and rice. So we
Hmm.
make flatbreads or chapatis as we call it here, roti chapati.
Yes.
And then the rice is the second half. So meals are split
Yeah.
into half. One is chapati and sabji, which is vegetable. And the second half is rice and dal. Dal is like a lentil soup.
I love it. It's a good meal.
So buckwheat, millets and buckwheats. I'm pretty sure there must be a Indian variation of this because when we are talking at home, we don't use the English words, right? So I don't know what
Sure.
my mom would call this. She can identify from the shape, but I don't know what is the name. So yeah, if
Well,
the listeners know, do come drop it in the comments.
yeah, and if you will, if your mother or someone else will tell you, please send me a message. I'm also curious to know how if it's exists in Indian cuisine, and the name of it would also be interesting to know.
I found one more thing which is on the internet is your cakes, which look like trees.
Yeah, that's also like a traditional desserts that we eat during different kind of celebrations. So it's called shakotas in Lithuanian. Yeah, it's a very delicious meal, and it does look like a tree. So shaka in Lithuanian is called, it means a branch. So shakotis is like branchy, and maybe translated to English somehow, and it does look like a tree.
You
And we
know,
also have another one. We also
shakar.
have shimtalapis.
You mentioned shakar, right? So
Shaka, yes.
yeah, shakar means sugar in one of my languages.
Ah, really? In Lithuanian, it's cukrus.
Yeah, sucrose. So
So
that and
that's,
yeah,
uh-huh,
as you love languages, the have I studied a bit of German. So the name for mother and saying no is same. It starts with N. No, negating something starts with N. So we say
uh-huh,
na or nai.
yeah.
And for mother, it's ma or amma. So what do you call in Lithuanian?
Oh, I think this is like extremely international. It's mama.
Yeah.
So it's like but you can even find it in Chinese. So ma is also mother. So this is probably one of the words that almost most of the humanity share. So mama. And so that would be the Lithuanian equivalent.
And what is negating something? How do you say no?
We just say nah,
Na.
nah.
Yeah. So that's the same. Uh, cool. Very interesting. And you said you were saying something. There's another
Uh,
cake or something.
yeah, I have written the words in the chat box. So that's shakotas, the one that you have shown, is one of the traditional desserts, and shimtalapis, which is the one that I prefer, is like another one.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also it's nice to try it out if someone decides to visit.
So what's the best time to visit
Definitely summer.
Lithuania?
I would say late spring, summer. Yeah. So somewhere after May.
Somewhere after May.
Yeah, because the weather is starting to get warmer. The nature starts to blossom again, so it's the nature is waking up, and after the winter rest. So definitely sometime after May, and like the weather starts to get quite cooler at October. Then in October we're starting to get quite a lot of rain as well. So October and November is fairly rainy, and all the way from late November or December to, let's say, April, it's quite cold and also partly snowy if we get snow that year.
And what's the best activity that everybody must do?
During summertime,
Anytime. Like, what activity would you recommend from Lithuania?
well, if you come during the winter time, definitely taking sleds and going down the hills with sleds. It's very fun. We're not a very mountainous country, but we do have hills, and the kids love doing it. But also adults also find fun in the going sledding from the mountains. So it's like you sit on a certain thing which slides very well, and then you just go down the hill through the snow. It's very entertaining.
I heard basketball is your second religion.
Uh, Many people are very fond of basketball. That is true. But we had better times in terms of like the level of basketball. I don't think that we're in the golden age of basketball at the moment. Maybe we were like 20 years ago, something like that. But it's still a very, very popular activity. So many people enjoy watching it on the TV, going to the arenas to watch the games. And probably it's the most popular sports. Well, not probably, certainly it's the most popular sport in Lithuania.
In your language, how do you appreciate something?
If we want to say how beautiful, we say kaip gražu. If we want to say thank you for something in the act of appreciation, we say ačiū or
Achu.
labai ačiū. Yeah, so that's like thank you, and labai ačiū is like thanks a lot. So that's also a sign of appreciation. We
How
have
would
the
you
word
go? I was asking, how would you appreciate an artwork or something, some object which is beautiful?
We would say kaip gražu, or we would say kaip nuostabu. So kaip nuostabu is how wonderful, and kaip gražu is how beautiful.
And what compliment can a man give to a woman?
If you want to say you have beautiful eyes, you would say kokios gražios tavo akys. Also, if you want to say I have never seen anyone as beautiful as you, we would say aš niekada nemačiau tokios gražios merginos kaip tu. So that would be like for a lady at least. So that would be a compliment if you're praising the beauty of another person. But of course, there would be some other phrases to say when you're complimenting something else. And if someone is interested, they can text me and I'll text them back telling it.
And why is it too slang?
No, it's
Is
like
it censored?
no, it's not. It's not. It's just I believe it would just get quite long.
Okay.
But unfortunately, I would like to admit this that many Lithuanian women complain that Lithuanian men don't give them enough compliments. So
Oh.
maybe we're actually lacking that side of us where we compliment each other, because Lithuanians as people are fairly reserved, and they kind of keep themselves to themselves. They oftentimes don't watch in the other person's eyes for too long either. I would say that in general, on standard, this is definitely not in all cases, but Lithuanian people are fairly suspicious of not just of people from elsewhere, but of themselves as well. So maybe that kind of reserved side of the people also connects with lack of giving compliments one to another.
If you had to improve one thing about your country, what would that be?
I would definitely try to ban the cutting of forests and hunting, because there were a lot of new regulations trying to be put in place, like that hunters could hunt with night goggles. So I hope that this one was not passed, because if you're hunting during the day, at least let the animals have their life at night, because most animals adapted to sleep during the day and to live during the night. So definitely I would try to avoid that. And also, as I mentioned, 1/3 of the country is forested, and that's really lovely, because when you drive around, you are going through the forest all the time. And I wouldn't like that to disappear in the future. And unfortunately, our current Minister of Environment is selling off most of our forests to the Scandinavian countries, and that's not cool. I would like that to stop happening.
What is the first impression you get when I mention India?
Well, most of it is regarding religion. So, like, if I hear the word India, I immediately imagine a variety of colors, a variety of activities. It's definitely a colorful place that has a lot going on. Because, but mainly it's because probably I have researched quite a bit, and I had a few friends from India as well. But definitely colorfulness and variety and rituals what come to mind.
Even the Lithuanian dress are very colorful and beautiful, as we just saw. Yeah, but it's very interesting. If you could travel anywhere in the world, like you could just teleport yourself anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Well, I have an interesting fancy of the Far East Asian cultures as well. I have visited Japan and Korea before, but I would like to actually return to Japan. Maybe again to Kyoto. I really liked the spaciousness of the area. So the fairly quiet place, walking around and feeling the social space between the people. Of course, is different when you're a tourist and when you're a local. So
Hmm.
living from the inside of the culture, I believe, would be very different from coming outside to spend a few days. But and I have never seen Mount Fuji. Or maybe I would like to go to Peru as well, like visiting some local places there.
A lot of
Uh,
places.
oh yeah, definitely.
What are some other less known facts about Lithuania?
Well, we already talked about trying to preserve the language through the smuggling of books, so that's definitely one, which is an interesting feature. Another one would be maybe relating to contemporary Lithuania and regarding the IT sector. So your podcast is also related to entrepreneurship, and Lithuania actually has declared itself by themselves like the fintech hub of Europe. And it's a very good environment for startups regarding IT and web design and all other kind of aspects relating with IT, because it has that probably the fastest speed in Europe and maybe even the fastest internet speed in the entire world.
How much?
So can't say.
How
I don't
many
know the details.
Mbps or GBps?
Unfortunately, I do not know that, but anyone who would like to Google, they could. But it's just that saying that it's the fastest internet, and that creates a good infrastructure for startups relating to IT and fintech.
Isn't Estonia also competing for that position? I heard the same things about Estonia.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not the most reliable subject on the matter. I just have read a lot of headlines and listened to a lot of YouTube videos, but that is not scientifically proven facts. But uh, but yeah. Let's put it another way. We have good internet speeds,
Hmm.
which is quite, and wireless internet is like almost everywhere. So in a cafe you can sit down, also even in a bench somewhere in the central street, and use Wi-Fi, which is quite cool. So maybe that's not well known.
And
So
is it free?
most places, yes.
High speed free internet. All right. Did that even mean that Lithuanians are interested in Web3 and crypto?
Yes, it's definitely a big wave in Lithuania, and quite a few foreign companies are investing in building infrastructure inside Lithuania and transferring some of their units to the country. So it's definitely a growing field, and working in IT is very popular. Of course, you have to have skills and competencies to do that, but there was definitely a wave where everyone wanted to be a manager. And like when I was a kid working in business, and now everyone wants to be an IT person. So that's just a trend of the contemporary times.
All right. Let's talk about you. You wanted to become a manager, but then you did anthropology and sociology,
Oh no,
and now you're
I did not
teaching
want.
English.
I did not want to become a manager. It was just a trend. What I wanted to, I don't know. It's like Some people just have different kinds of attractions from being kids. It's like your calling or whatever, something that you feel attracted to. And whenever I saw movies about ancient Egypt or something about ancient China or India or some kind of a location that was quite far away from Lithuania, because it's like pre-internet times, and at that times there were not many foreigners coming to Lithuania as tourists, so it was not yet a touristic place. So I always felt interested and attracted in foreign ways of life, so cultures in general. So that was kind of my attraction, and probably I was drawn to it the most. And then I got interested in philosophy and psychology, but somehow I ended up graduating from sociology and anthropology, which was my BA. But through visiting different locations and meeting many English speakers that work as tutors, I have realized that it's actually quite a good profession to have if you want to travel and change places, and also earn a livelihood doing so. So maybe that was one of the reasons why I decided to start teaching languages. And after some time of teaching English, I felt a little bit like I was not giving anything back to my own culture. So I decided that why not try to teach Lithuanian as well. And I'm definitely happy that there's not a lot of Lithuanian students. There's a bunch of a bunch of them. But it's always fun when a foreigner, for one or another reason, decides to learn Lithuanian. So
Mm.
it's a different kind of experience
And
teaching
we
your
learned
own
how
native
to,
language.
yeah, and we learned how to appreciate beauty of an object of artwork as well as compliment women today.
Yeah, that's a good starter. That's a good starter to have.
Let's go. Your script, your written script has what kind of characters? What do you call them? Symbols.
Well, it's a Latin script, so it's based on the Latin scripts, but we do have a couple of letters which are maybe not just found in Lithuanian, but they're not very common in other Latin or Latin-based alphabets. So,
Example.
so, so we have different ways of how to say ah, different ways. It's mainly related to vowels, but it's also related to consonants. So, like, I can type a couple of them to you. Um, Actually, because most of them are on my keyboard.
Oh.
So just a couple of them are like here. So we have those like small things under
Ah,
the
like a
vowel or
small
on the
thing
top.
under and a V on top.
Yeah, or a line, just a line on a vowel, which most of the time implicates that it's a longer vowel. And also the thing on the bottom, it also indicates that a vowel should be prolonged. So if you just have a regular A, we would say a. So like when, kada, it's a short vowel. But if we ask a question like what, in terms like what do you want to do, we would ask ka. It's a longer vowel, so like ka nori veikti. What would you like to do? So this and also because Lithuanian is a synthetic language, meaning that the word order doesn't really matter that much. Uh, all the information is coded in the endings of the word or in some other places inside the words. So we like add and subtract different parts of the words to change the meaning of it, and it also shows a subject verb object relationship. So it
Example.
shows if it's a subject, an object. So let's take my name Paulus, right? So Paulus is the nominative case in the language, and it's a noun that if I change the ending, the meaning of my name will change. So Paului would be for Paulus. So we don't need to use the preposition for, and we don't then have to think about where the word should stand in relationship. So Paului, Paului smagu. So it's fun for Paulus. Or let's say invite Paulus, we would say pakviesk Paulių. So we change Paulus into Paulių.
Mm.
Um, if we take an object like a cup, it's podukas, but inside the cup, it would be poduke. And like what you want to pick up, paimti poduka. And it's like when something happened to the cup, it happened podukui. So we changed, just like in some verbs in Romanic languages, we have tenses, right? Like in the English language, you also have a tense, and maybe you will say, I walk, he walks, right? The same would be in English, but also not just with the verbs, but with the nouns. So that's I guess that's what makes it complicated. But this is also present in some Slavic languages too, and
And you
most of
said,
Slavic languages, I guess.
and that's very interesting to know. Good fun fact. You also said the prolonged pronunciation of vowels, right? That's also
Yes.
there in Sanskrit related languages. So for Hindi, there's
Yeah.
the vowels are many. They're like 12 vowels. A,
Mhm.
E,
Oh,
E, U, U, A, I,
yeah, that's the same.
O, Au,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Aha. Yeah. So yeah,
Cool.
that's, and also I've observed Hindi or in these languages have a lot of consonants in them. The consonants are very strongly pronounced.
Hmm. Well, in Lithuanian, in the letters that I have sent you, you can see those small kind of a bird shapes on consonants. So like a regular S, C would be like this, right? That's a regular S. But if you want to have a more pronounced S, we would say sh, sh. So let's take some kind of object. So there's a specific bird in Lithuania that it looks like a crow, but it's a little bit different from a crow. It's called sharka. So sharka would be pronounced and spelled with this letter. And it's the same with other letters with the same symbol. So let's say we have a ts, like zeppelin. You showed the food. It starts with a ts, English C. But if we want to make it more pronounced, we add the top symbol, and then it becomes into ch. So ch would be like that's a very good word to show how it works. So when you say thank you, oh, I'm sorry, for some reason I stopped hearing you.
This would
You're
have been
back.
awesome if you had a sketchboard around and show, because it's difficult for me to like find a way to show it on the screen. So when you do that translation, that video with the your Sanskrit
Yeah.
counterpart, have a board behind you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I know that Baghdad also does like so there are two cameras, and at the bottom there's the words in the text written in the native language, I believe. So definitely there will be those parts, and unfortunately, maybe there will be to show these letters. Probably some editing will be required, but
Hmm.
yeah, it's just
So
yeah.
this was I was what I was
So
able to
this
do
was
so far. So I pulled up a online sketch pad and just typed it in. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's true. So the last one is sharka, and if you so that's the more strongly pronounced as sh, and the achu, the last word that I have sent, like thank you, it also has that ch sound, achu. And one more, it's probably zh, so like a z. So that's also
achu.
a longer pronounced.
Achu is like
Prasham.
it's like a sneezing sound, right? Achu.
It's like apchu, but without a p. And if you want to say no worries, or like if someone's saying thank you to you and you say my pleasure, right? So we answer by the word prasham. So
Prasham.
so if if you say achu to me, I say prasham to you.
Oh,
So yeah.
interesting. Very interesting. So that was lesson 102 of Lithuanian. Contact Polis for more.
It's definitely.
And
And one extra one. Instead of Prussian, you sometimes might hear neraushka. So neraushka, it means like it's nothing. So that's another
Neroshka,
common answer.
Neroshka
Neraushka.
sounds so Russian.
Uh, Maybe it's because if for an untrained ear it could, but it's actually three words. Neraushka.
Okay,
Yeah,
quite
it's maybe
interesting.
Nerushka definitely sounds Russian, but there's like a little bit of space between the words.
So in Russian, there are these common words and surnames end with ski, right? Ski at the end. So do you have any common
Yes.
surnames in Lithuania like that, or names?
Well, it's a little bit odd, and one person has pointed that out to me that most of the masculine endings in Lithuanian language of nouns has the same endings as in the Greek language. So even the word Paulus, so us, is a
Yeah,
common ending
exactly.
both in
When
Greek
I first
and
heard your
Lithuanian.
name Polus, right, I thought it was a Greek
Yes.
name.
Yeah, and that's a very common feature. And the three main endings of masculine nouns would be us, is, us. So that's the same as in Greek. So that would be like a very common, and almost all men names ends in us. So like Thomas, Lucas, Mantas, Jonas. Like I can just keep going.
In India, it's not, I cannot say how specific it is for men, but the girl names are related to men when you add E or R to it. So my name is
Okay.
Tanmay. My name is Tanmay, but the girl version of Tanmay would be Tanmaya or Tanmayi.
Ah, that's actually similar to more to the Russian language because ya, a, I are common endings when it comes to feminine names. But also in Lithuanian, let's say that's a very common name, Maria, Anna, maybe also it's very common, Agle. So it's E or A most of the time. Agle, Katrina, different kind of names that ended A or E sounds.
Do you call ananas?
Bananas, it's a banana, but
No.
ananas, it's ananasus.
Yeah, ananas is jackfruit. And not jackfruit, pineapple. In
Pineapple.
in
So
yeah,
yeah,
in
it's
India and
just
I yeah.
it's just funny because as I've said, like we put the masculine us everywhere. So even if it ends at ananas, you say ananasus. So we still add the us.
Yeah, so this is another common thing between Indian words and European. It is not there in English. So quite interesting.
Yeah, but I think it's there's something similar in Portuguese. I don't
Yeah.
remember, but like going to the
Portuguese
shop,
and
I think
Spanish, it's the same, ananas.
yeah, I think so too.
What inspired you to do anthropology and sociology? And what, yeah, first answer that, and then I wanted to know what did you study? What were your topics?
Well, mainly as I've mentioned a little bit before, that I had an interest in history and cultures. So like learning about different cultures and the histories of the regions and the people always fascinated me. So
So, what were your
it
topics
was
that you studied in anthropology or sociology?
well, it's different kind of. It's mainly how to do cultural research. So that's like a predominant topic. It's like study a culture. Well, what does that mean? Well, first, like, what is culture to begin with? So what do you want to study? Is the shape of a table, is it culture, like, or it's just like an accident? So so first things first was how to approach studying culture and how to maintain your backgrounds while immersing in the other culture, because many anthropologists get so involved that they adapt the culture to themselves, and then they want to continue living in it. So
Ah,
they stop being anthropologists, and like they get overly immersed and they become part of the culture and leave their background. So that was like a very common theme for like anthropologists when the science began. So it's like how to balance like your scientific view with being receptive and being able to take in and experience and observe the peculiarities and ways of life of other people.
how can anthropologists or sociologists make money?
Well, it's a very hot topic to answer that, but anthropology as a field, let's say, has different kind of branches. So, like, there's business anthropology, there's medical anthropology. So, if we think about business anthropology, so people go to different kind of companies to help manage the relationships and understand the culture and be able to. They're kind of like the intermediaries between different kind of groups of people inside a specific larger group of people. So they mediate and try to explain to the sides that don't understand each other, like, what's up? so,
Yeah, even
so,
marketing, right? Understanding markets of a country or a region or ethnicity and people. It's very important. For example, in 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 um, in Arabic world, they read from left to right, right? Right to
Mhm.
left.
Sure.
So, a clothing ad which failed over there. So, in other countries, they would show a dirty shirt first, and then a clean
Hmm.
and white shirt for a detergent ad, right? So they
Okay.
tried to put the same board there, but what would that mean over there? They would see the clean shirt first and then the dirty shirt. So this detergent makes your clean shirts dirty just because of the way they read.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
so
And
so this is
like different kind of countries have like very different kind of cultural signals when it comes to expressing gratitude or trust or distrust. So it's also important to be like very culturally aware in a business setting. Like a very stereotypical example is like business relationships between Japanese and American people. So the way they approach business is very different. So one is more straightforward and kind of pushing to like sign the contract and get the deal now. It's like time is money. Another one is more like walking around the ponds, trying to build trust, trying to see whether we could develop a relationship in a more trustworthy manner before we sign an agreement. Even the body language is different. So, like cultural anthropologists do help to inform people about these kind of things and to educate them about that.
is there anything specific to Lithuania or the Baltics countries in this case?
Well, as I said, Lithuanians are quite reserved on standards. Not all the time, and not everyone definitely, but that's like a common theme. And uh, we're not very touchy, so we don't like to touch each other too much. So that could be a little bit like intrusive in some parts.
So
So that's important to
you
know.
don't hug or shake hands.
We shake hands. Yeah, that's common. And with friends, we also hug. Not everyone, but but we do hug when we trust each other and we have developed a certain level of like intimacy between each other. Also, like kissing each other on the cheeks are becoming more popular as you know, like the country's culture is changing
Like the
because definitely like
French way, or like cheek in front of the face? Cheek in front of the face or like sideways?
sideways,
Okay.
sideways.
French types. Yeah, just the cheek touching the cheek.
Yes, mainly. So that is also becoming more common as the country maybe it's part of the global warming, so it's like cultural warming as well.
We were seeing the kiss in the Greenland style. So that's interesting.
Really?
they touch the nose to the cheek.
Ah, I did not know that. It's maybe something like relating to the colder climates, like
Yeah,
the kisses with the nose and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff.
very interesting. So I asked this question because I'm trying to, like, when I'm doing this podcast, people are like, you need to have a niche. You cannot just have everybody. So I'm trying to figure out how to um, get or find the people who would be interested in knowing about different cultures and countries. So people ask me, what is your podcast about? I've started now saying that it's about diversity of all countries and regions. That's what you're covering through art, culture, entrepreneurship, and science. So, whom do you think will be interested in a podcast like this, where each episode is something totally new, but also same in the questions we ask all the hosts, guests?
Well, I guess it's open-minded people that do like to explore and explore not just by traveling to certain locations, but by researching and learning about different kind of people and other kind of ways of life. And so probably it's mainly open-minded people that are looking in the world in a broader sense than their national identity, let's say, or they're like some kind of other identity. And as the more access is happening with traveling, it's for people who just want to not think stereotypically, but do their research before, so it kind of
Hmm.
broadens their minds, because when a closed mind people hears of the words, I don't know, Iranian, they immediately think about an extremist or something like that, which is but that's just what they have seen through the media, through the television. And different kind of countries have different kind of schemes in terms of their politics and mass media and other kind of
Propaganda.
nuances. Propaganda, that's the main words. And of course, like, you don't have to throw away the baby with the bathwater. There's something true in every joke or in every stereotype, but if it's only the stereotype that you have in the mind, then your views of the world is twisted. And if you want to kind of untwist those views, your channel is good for that, because you get to see a person from a different culture. You get to hear, and to also you get some leads to follow. So if you're interested in a certain topic, you can then take the word that you heard, or the phrase or the idea, and research it further. So it's a good introduction, diving deeper and catching more leads.
As you're speaking, I remembered another question. How is the sex ratio in Baltic countries or Lithuania in that manner? Like the
I
ratio
think
of
it's
men to
like,
women,
I think from, I don't know which year, but in terms of
which
demographic,
is
it's
which
like,
is more, men are more or women are more?
well, it's around zero point 0.9 men to every one female. So it's skewed, and there are more females than men. And mainly it's because of the world wars and the Holocaust. Because during the Holocaust, around from the 200,000 Jewish inhabitants of Lithuania, 90% were executed. So 180,000 died just in the Holocaust. And that is why we have many kind of memoriam sites for the victims of the Holocaust during the Nazi takeover of Lithuania.
But
Maybe
was it
that's why I
because
was a
it?
little. Mhm.
Sorry, that's why you were.
That's why I was a little bit sensitive when I saw the swastika in red and black colors, and trying to
Ah,
appropriate Lithuanian symbolism in the Nazi way of symbolic measures, is because
hmm.
most probably it was from those times, and not good things were happening in the Lithuania region at that moment.
Oh, I understand. Was it they? Was it because of the Jewish population? Are Jews a
Mhm.
common? Is it a major religion in Lithuania
At the moment, no. In the past, it was much more common
before the Holocaust, or
before
did
the Holocaust. Yeah.
Holocaust wipe all the Jews?
Uh, like 90% of the Jewish community was lost. And I think part of why there was quite a significant Jewish community in Lithuania is because even from the 40th century, we were inviting different kind of craftspeople and different kind of specialists into the Lithuanian kingdom to have their crafts, have their diplomacy running, and we were kind of also inclusive of different kind of people coming to Lithuania and starting their business, although the word business was not a thing at that time,
Hmm.
but starting their crafts places and yeah. So
So
I think
why didn't Mhm.
from those times
why
there was a lot of Jews.
why didn't the sex ratio improve after that? Like, it's been a while, right? There must be two or three generations at least that I might have gone, or four.
Well, it's a common theme in many European countries. I believe that the birth ratio is going down, and even I am part of that ratio because I don't have kids and I'm 30 years old, and just people are having less children. We are having children later, so now it's very common to have children after 30. It's like a new norm. And at the same time, many people emigrate from Lithuania because they're looking for other kind of opportunities. So imagine that if Lithuania is made of around 2.83 million people currently, something like that, and
8.3,
uh, 2.8.
2.8 million people. Okay.
Yeah, so that's not a big number, but just in one American city, which is Chicago, in unofficial data and official demographics, there's 1 million Lithuanians in
Oh,
one foreign city. So it's like one third of the whole country in the current numbers is in Chicago.
so you need to learn Lithuanian before going to Chicago.
Definitely, definitely. And also it's good because the language, I believe, like many people preserve the language outside of the country. So Lithuanian language currently is in endangered language list. So it's endangered of disappearing, at least for
Mhm.
certain people. And that's in a way that's good because even if our demographics is going to continue to decrease, which is, I think, no country in history has, after the demographics started to dip, it climbed back up. So when it starts to dip, it continues to dip. And I don't know what kind of measures must have to be taken to like bring that back. So that's a little bit a sad note in terms of like the future of the country if it continues going that way.
It's quite interesting. In India, there are more men than women.
Right.
Yeah. It was because of female infanticide,
Right.
preferring the male child over the female child. And that's changing now. Government has proposed so many laws. So it's really proud feeling to have a daughter. So it is changing. The whole society and community is changing. A lot of um, ownership, land ownership, and wealth related things, advantages are given to women now. So I think it should grow. But at the point of population collapse or decline, I think it's happening everywhere. I spoke
True
this.
that.
I
Yeah.
was we were talking about the same thing when I was talking to a anthropologist from Mongolia. It's
Really?
even there. Yeah, only the
Wow.
country
Even in
where it is.
Mongolia.
Only the country where I have heard people having good fertility rate and uh, population growing is Africa.
Yeah, still
So
still ongoing.
yeah,
Well, I think it's a common thing that people are worried about population growth. And well, it's a legitimate worry because more people, less food and space, more environmental impacts. But it's definitely going to stagnate. And most probably after it stagnates, it's going to start dropping significantly because we are going to have much more older people than young people. So the tables will turn, and I wonder who is going to build the infrastructure, produce goods after most of the population is made of old
Hmm.
people. So luckily in Africa now it's actually different, because I think I have heard that in Mozambique over 50% of people are below 15. So and so it's a very young country, and even China now has I think that when there's the demographics,
Collapsing,
most of the
yeah,
time,
collapsing population.
like in Mozambique, it's the pyramid is like this, right? So like there's a lot, just a little bit of old people, and there's a significant amount of young people. In China, it's more now. It's becoming like a cylinder shape. So it's like the same age group. There's a similar amount of people, but because of the one-child policy that they had before, it's going to change probably with time. And in most advanced, or advanced is not the right word, um, late capitalism societies, maybe we could say, where
Late
the
capitalism society, I like that.
where there's a lot of older people, the pyramid has turned like this. So there's a lot of old people, less middle-aged people, and not so many young people. So
Hmm.
so that's even the shape shows that there's a lot of pressure coming down. So and that's not very good in many ways.
That's some interesting thought we can all ponder upon. That calls us to the signature round. Name three people, living or dead, that you would like to have lunch with.
From any region in the world.
Any region, any time period.
That's tough. I think I would like to have lunch with the late Alan Watts, which was a British philosopher, which actually was a very big figure in terms of introducing Eastern thought. So Buddhism, Hinduism, different kind of Eastern philosophies and religion to the West. So he was a very interesting and well-spoken and entertaining person. So definitely would spend a dinner talking with him. Would be fun. Um, Maybe also Daisaku Suzuki, which was a Japanese scholar and monk as well. So he was also like he was also definitely spreading the Japanese Zen Buddhist way of life, in not just from a Buddhist but also from an academic perspective, which is very hard to do from the academic side of view. And one more person. So let me think about that. That's a good one. Maybe Maharishi. Why not Ramana Maharishi? So he was a very interesting person. Although he has already passed away, I would like to just sit in his presence and see what it's like to be with that man.
So there is a
As
second
a
part to this question.
Yeah,
What question would you ask them?
okay. So Maharishi, I would ask maybe about his experience. Like how does he experience the world? Like that would be very interesting to know. Like probably it could be like an answer that wouldn't make sense for me, but I would still like to hear it. With Daisaku Suzuki, uh, maybe I would like to ask why Buddhism, just in general, because Japan adopted Buddhism from China in the 12th century, and it has stuck, and it has merged with Shintoism, like their native religion. So I would just ask why Buddhism, and I would be curious to know. And with Alan Watts, because he was an interesting philosopher, but also he was at the same time quite 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 a drinker and a feminizer, womanizer in some ways. I'd like to ask like how his philosophical and religious understanding merges with his day-to-day life. And how does he manage to combine his ideas of life with his life and not have cognitive dissonance? Like what how can he still be an integral person, even though there's so much happening there. So be interesting to know about, is there a conflict there? And if it's not, how he legitimizes that.
Hmm. Very interesting. Next question. How to make money?
Teach English. No, I'm kidding. um, how to make money? Well,
Any question
definitely
is
there's.
right. Yeah. Whatever you think.
I think like there's a lot of possibilities now with the AI technologies, right? So even like the ChatGPT invention probably is something maybe not as Gutenberg press, but still it's very important. I believe in our day and age, and it's going to continue, and it helps you to automate a lot of things that's happening. So I believe like learn to code probably, and learn to understand and use artificial intelligence technologies, and that could probably maximize your performance in many areas.
What is the Gutenberg press?
It's the first printing machine.
Okay.
So it was invented in Germany when they started printing the Lutheran Bible.
I thought it was the name of another chat GPT like software that I
The
wasn't aware of. But yes,
15th century
printing
Germanic
press.
version.
But you started the question by talking about teaching. So can you just
Yeah.
elaborate on that?
Well, it was just a small joke because I am a teacher. So you will definitely not make millions through teaching, but it's quite a nice way if you like speaking with people. If you like to engage on one-on-one contact or attend on even with groups, and you just like to teach, you don't shy away from people. It's a very good and liberating way how to earn a livelihood, given that you also know how to market yourself because there's many teachers. So like what makes you a special teacher? That
Hmm.
always has to be also like why you and not someone else. But I guess it also depends on many factors, like just like energy and mood, and like why, like how do you vibe with the other person? So it's like vibration in general.
As a teacher, for making money, would you have more students on a lower price or have only one or two people for a much higher price?
Oh, definitely the second one, because like if you play around price, then you're just being a commodity. It's like if that's your way of negotiation, then you are putting yourself in a very big disadvantage in the relationship to your future students. It's a good way to
Hmm.
start, though. I started with very low prices just because I was starting. But then, you have to know, as they say, your price. It's your expertise, it's your experience, it's your time, it's your energy, it's your effort. There's a lot of things that are, and if you devalue yourself, well, you're doing a disservice to yourself and probably to your student too.
Interesting. What is art for you?
Well, probably art is life. In general, life is art. Like you're a piece of art, definitely. So am I. So it's the rest of it. So like the art behind you and that nice picture, it's also a representation of what you already can find and see in the universe, probably, like mixing the senses in some kind of a way. So like
Yeah.
that, I think like just life from some kind of a standpoint, from a some type of a perspective is art in itself.
What value do you think art adds to the world?
Well, probably it expands the boundaries because it pushes cultures forwards. Mainly, it doesn't. At least art in the older days. Now it's more like about breaking stereotypes, and sometimes to a very silly and ridiculous extents. But it's also like being able to see beyond what other people regularly see. So whether it will be in a written form, in a painted, in a musical form, it's like showing the others what they don't yet see through some kind of other means.
What are the business or investment opportunities for foreigners in Lithuania?
Well, definitely e-commerce, IT, fintech areas would be good. Also, beauty. Uh, Beauty industry is growing, and maybe.
Hello. Yes.
Hi, welcome back.
Cosmetics.
Yeah, the beauty industry in general. I think Lithuanians are, especially the women, are very proud of their looks in many ways, also of their strong character. But everyone wants to be beautiful, and if you can work on your natural beauty and maybe give it a little twist, that's also also tourism, because uh, foreigners are discovering the Baltic states, and every year we get more and more tourists. So, and real estate prices are increasing like mad, especially after the war has started in Ukraine.
Hmm.
So maybe there are some real estate opportunities, but I'm definitely not qualified to consult on that matter in any kind of way.
What is the best advice you have ever received?
I'll say it in Lithuanian. It will sound very cringe, but I'll explain later on. So, būk paprastas, bet neprastas. So, paprastas is simple. Prastas is like bad in terms of quality. So, būk paprastas, bet neprastas. It means like be simple, but not of bad quality. So it's a word play in Lithuanian because paprastas and prastas, those are very similar words, but they have opposite meanings. And when you put it together, it's a nice Lithuanian saying. Although for many Lithuanians, it will sound as a little bit of a cringe, but it does show that you have to have humility in your person, but you don't have to be of bad character or bad quality. So like your humility, if it's authentic, actually, and if you're like knowledgeable and educated and capable of things, it kind of adds to the subject. So probably that was one of the better advice from one of my teachers at school.
What is the most priceless gift you have ever received?
Priceless gifts. That's a good one. A lot of gifts come to my mind which are not tangible physical objects, and for some reason I'm thinking about birthdays. But maybe it's one of the travels that brought me and my girlfriend together during our first year of vacation. So she doesn't like to give objects as a gift. She likes to give experiences. So we went into another place. We bonded, and that's priceless because we're still together 5 years later.
Oh,
So yeah.
wow. So you both are from Lithuania.
Yeah, we're both from Lithuania, and we both are teachers.
What
Funny
does she
enough,
teach?
English and French,
Oh, both are language teachers.
and language enthusiasts and teachers. Yeah.
I didn't ask this to in beginning, but in what part of Lithuania did you grow up?
I grew up in central Lithuania, so it's the second biggest town. It's called Kaunas,
Okay.
and interestingly, it's always seen as a very Lithuanian type of a city because it didn't
What
have many. Uh-huh.
What do you mean by Lithuanian? What's a
Because
Lithuanian stereotype?
because mainly the you wouldn't hear foreign languages in Kaunas often, so you would only hear Lithuanian most of the time. And the capital city Vilnius is more multicultural. It has a significant population of different kind of people from, let's say, from the Russian Federation, from Ukraine, from Belarus, from Poland, Jewish people as well. But Kaunas was one of those cities that mainly Lithuanians people lived in, not in a nationalistic sense, that you stay away from Kaunas or something like that. It's like it just happens some way.
Hmm.
So and that was also a little bit of misfortune for me because as a kid I didn't hear many foreign languages except English, and some of my friends played with Russian speakers, Polish speakers in the in the backyards, and as kids they picked up foreign languages and they were able to learn foreign tongues. And 20 years later they have like four languages under the belt without even studying them. So that's cool.
Yeah, the more, as you mentioned on a website, it's better when you have somebody to talk to as compared to reading it or just learning it or listening it. You learn quicker when you're talking to somebody.
Certainly, like that's one thing that you cannot do by yourself. You can talk with yourself, but it's awkward and limited.
Best way to learn a language is to talk.
Yeah, well, if you're a diligent person, you can spend quite a lot of time like reading and learning words and even doing like course books and grammar. And one of my friends had gave me a very good suggestion to write every day in a foreign language that you're learning from day one. So if I begin learning Italian today, I should write at least like 50 or 100 words. Doesn't matter, use Google Translate, do whatever, but try to put down those 50 words. And it has significantly like increased his language, like English level. So yeah, but speaking, that's unfortunately you cannot, even as diligent, as disciplined, as motivated as you are, you have to have a partner for that.
What do you think about Duolingo?
Duolingo, I haven't used it much. I think it's good for starters, but like after a week or two, you can definitely move on. And it's also fine because because it's gamified and it has like different kind of rewards. So it triggers our parts, the brain part that gives you like a boost of happiness and motivation. When you get a reward. So it's good for like the very very start, but probably after a while you should move on and like if you're serious about it, find like Link. I'm not sponsored by Link in any kind of way. I just use it. It's a website by I forgot that guy's name. Stephen Hoffman, maybe. He's a Canadian polyglot, and there you can read and study. Mainly it's for inputs, so you can read and listen to various kind of text in a foreign language, and it has an inbuilt translator. So if you don't know the word, you just press on the word and you get a translation in another
Hmm.
language. So it's very good to expand your vocabulary. So I think after you get like the very basics, you could move on to more like this kind of more input packed platform to get more out of it.
What is your favorite movie?
Uh this is going to be cringe again, but I think like the early 2000s blockbusters, like Gladiator or something like that. Yeah.
Why
Or
do
or
you?
or
What do you?
like sorry, I'll just add one more. Probably some of the Bruce Lee films because I liked Hong Kong films also.
What do you mean by cringe? Because you already used it 2 times and it wasn't really very cringy. So,
Stereotypical maybe in some ways.
all right. Do Lithuanians make their own movies, or is there a movie or YouTube channel which just talks in Lithuanian?
There are. I'm actually planning to do. I have been planning to do it for a long time to make a Lithuanian podcast where I would speak in a not too much of a difficult vocabulary, but just about different topics, so people could listen to the Lithuanian language and pick up through input.
Yeah,
So
that'd be a great idea. You can start that with your girlfriend. Like you just
I
have
was
conversation.
I was planning to do that. Yeah, true.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. Because I came across, I wanted to use Translator to check this podcast translator app. So I was searching for French podcast. So
Yes.
they actually did that. The pair was talking in French to each other, and then there were subtitles. What actually they're talking, and it was a fun thing to hear.
Well, there's also one movie that got released a few years ago. It was based on a novel. It's called Tarp Pilkų debesų, so it's between gray clouds in English. So it's mainly a movie about and a book about the excommunications that were happening during the Soviet rule. So starting from the 1950s, I guess, when Stalin was in charge of the Soviet Union. So like it was very common, and it's a practice of many countries, not just Soviet Union, but to change the population. So let's say if you are a little bit richer or better off, and maybe you have 3 cows instead of 2, so that's not equal. And Soviet communism was all about equality, whatever that meant to them. So you're probably a bourgeois, so you're stealing from the people, and most probably will get excommunicated to Siberia. So you
Oh
and your
no.
family gets put in wagons of trains with many other people, and you get sent to a random distant location in the Siberian taiga. And then other people from, let's say, the Soviet Union will be transferred into Lithuania. So also like maybe from the same what is now Russian Federation or other places in the Soviet Union. So to kind of mix the people, and so they would get like free apartments or free jobs also. But that was like a common thing of the era, and it is what it is. But that movie is about that part of history, and my grandfather with his family was also excommunicated to Siberia. So later on,
Oh.
so he grew up there, he went to school there, and he returns after like 7-8 years there with the family and with his brothers and sisters and mother. His father was put into jail for who knows what kind of reasons. You can get into jail for anything during those times, being just a traitor of the country or whatever. And he died after he came back. And yeah, so it's about this topic, this period of time. And it's not extremely heartbreaking, although it does catches your heart, and it's very artistically nicely made.
Hmm.
So I think it's one of the movies that was most recognized as a Lithuanian movie from a Lithuanian
Hmm.
novel, at least in contemporary times.
Listening to this, I've added one more question in the culture round. What were the thoughts of your grandparents? What do they always talk about?
About different kind of things. So my grandmother tends to remember the young days when she was working as a nurse in a different city. And we laugh with my girlfriend because every time when grandparents are speaking about the way they walked to school or to work, you imagine them like running through the jungle, then through like hills of snow, then running from a bear. It's very extreme, but of course in a funny manner. But she does remember like it very fondly, like working as a nurse, helping people, having a lot of energy, joking around, chasing away men with slippers and banging them on the heads, all this kind of stuff. And my grandfather, at least from the same side, it was a little bit more sad because he had that history of excommunication. Then he lost his son, one of his sons, so my father's brother. And yeah, in the later life, he was quite a sad man. So he used to remember like the his life in Siberia, and so it was a little bit of a sadder note for him. Uh, but uh, but yeah,
Hmm.
they lived a country life mainly. They
Hmm.
lived in a village. They had their own things going on, and
Yes.
they just talked about their younger days.
What's your favorite book?
Um, I have different books that I enjoy from different genres, but I really liked the series by Carlos Castaneda, if you are familiar with him. So he was I believe, I don't know from where he was. I think he was ethnically Mexican, a Mexican anthropologist. I mean, although studying in America. And that's a book about how he went to the Peruvian jungle to investigate medicinal plants, and he encountered a yak Indian, which was like a wizard, a sorcerer, a
Hmm.
shaman, or something, and they began their apprenticeship. And it's like a book. Most people say that it's made up, and some people say that it's very esoteric. Uh, Whatever is it's a fantastic or not, the way it's written is extremely engaging. Like that's kind of what caught my interest in terms of anthropology, because how detailed and how nicely put was the, you can definitely imagine like you're sitting with the people, like, talking, having the same experiences as them. It's a very good uh art of very good piece of literature, I would say.
What's your favorite food?
I do enjoy Asian cuisine, so I'm fond of Indian food. I actually even worked in an Indian restaurant when I was like in my early adulthood, just to learn to cook Indian food. I wanted to
Dish.
study
Name
from a
the
chef.
dish.
Probably it's like some kind of a dal. Maybe chapatis are awesome. I love chapatis.
Okay, so you know what
and,
is chapati.
and curries. Yeah.
What gets you excited about the future?
I think what gets me excited on a personal level, it's mainly how podcasts are picking up and how the world is opening up to different kinds of media. So knowing that I and you are just like regular people that decided to buy I don't know, a 50 euro costing microphone, put a camera on and records our episodes. And then people actually watch it. It's crazy. Like it's insane. And just this kind of plurality of media channels and the reach that you can get and the connections that you can build with people from all over the world, that's really exciting.
I think it's the pure connection. It's without any propaganda. It's people can relate to. It's very natural and intimate kind of conversation. That's why people like to listen into podcasts.
Yeah. And also, like, there's kind of a big epidemic of loneliness in the world, I think.
Hmm.
And people feel more lonely and more disconnected like every year. And like podcasts helps you feel like being part of a community, so it's wonderful that you can have like you can be in an intimate conversation between two people as a listener.
Hmm.
So, and it also can bring a lot to your other conversations with the people that you actually meet, because there's no defensiveness. Well, sometimes of course there is, but there's a lack of defensiveness. There's a lack of competition. It's like just sitting with someone and having a chat without the extra layers.
Absolutely. That's a very well put in thought. What do you like to do for fun?
Martial arts
Which
mainly.
one?
Currently, I'm practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
Okay.
but I used to do boxing as well. I tried many arts, capoeira, taekwondo, but here I have a good coach of Jiu-Jitsu. I practice that.
Eh, Is this thing with martial arts, right? You cannot learn it from in the internet. You need a
Yeah,
coach.
for
What's
sure.
on your What's on your bucket list next?
Because I'm currently residing in Madeira, which is an island which is the same distance from Morocco as it's from Portugal. I have never been so far to the African continent, so close to the African continent, and I would like to slowly start exploring it. Maybe visit Morocco because it's very close. Um, I have never been to Egypt, never seen the pyramids. I have never seen many historical sites that are hard to explain. I would just love to go and see it in first person and just to see like and just ponder like how could this have happened? Like how is it
There
possible?
are
So I would like to do that. In India as well, of course, you have many amazing places to visit.
there are more pyramids in Sudan than in Egypt. So we
Of
talked
course,
about it in the span episode.
of
All
course,
right.
of course. But it's like maybe Bruce Lee is not the best martial artist, but probably is the most well known.
Well
so,
known, right?
so it's the same with the Egyptian pyramids.
And the Egyptians ones are the biggest, so that's why. All right. It was a great conversation. We're reaching the 2 hour mark. It was wonderful to hear and talk to you about culture, about languages, and getting to learn a bit of Lithuanian as well. At least starting on that journey. We'll connect with you on a podcast and definitely watch the episode of Sanskrit and Latvian. Thank you so much for joining us.
No
Any
worries. Thank
parting
you for having me, Tanmay.
any parting words for the audience?
Well, I guess just like don't forget to explore and like don't just judge the book from its cover. Get to know its contents. So stereotypes are a big thing, but the best way to learn about something is to get direct experience. So expose yourself to new things, like grow your experience, grow your consciousness, and just get to know life is not that long from what people say, and so soon it's gonna go away. So enjoy while it lasts.
Totally. And how was your experience today? Any feedback for us?
Well, it was great. Actually, I had a little bit of an imposter syndrome because I'm definitely not the most well-versed person about Lithuanian culture that you could find. But, I try to share uh, what I know. And if I actually shared something incorrectly, I would be glad if people would comment and correct me. Maybe I made some mistakes. So I'm open to learning and even learning about my own culture if I have misinterpreted something. So yeah, I'm hoping to get some feedback on the contents. It would be fun to hear.
This episode is brought to you by Tanmay Shah. That's me. Best way to support this show is by sharing this with your friends and dropping a comment and review on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. You can become my patron and a sponsor. That's not all. You can buy Rocklaz merchandise and NFTs and much more. See all the links in description for details.
Rocklaz Radio.
Rocklaz.
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 Rocklaz Radio with Tanmay Shah.